Hey, it's Coach Reeves, and today we're going to solve quadratic equations by completing the square. But a couple of things we need to review before we get started. How do we find that C value? To find this C value, remember what we did. We had a formula that said C equals B divided by 2, and then we would square that. But the same thing as dividing by 2 is multiplying times 1/2. So if my C value is -5 and we multiply it times 1/2, that will equal -5/2, and then we square that. -5 times -5 is 25. 2 times 2 is 4. That is my C value. What if my B value is a fraction? My B value is 3/2. We're going to take our B value. We're not going to divide by 2, but we're going to multiply by 1/2. And that's going to give me 3, and then we're going to square it. But we're going to go 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 2 is 4. And then we're going to square that, and then we're going to get 9/16. How do you find your C value? B divided by 2 and then square it, or B times 1/2 and then square it. Okay, let's solve some equations. All right, step 1, we still have to create a blank or a gap. We have to move something. So we're going to move the 7 to the other side. How do we move this -7? We're going to go +7 to move it. We're going to have n squared minus 6n plus blank equals 7 plus blank. Very similar to finding or rewriting the equation into vertex form. Now, next step is we're going to ask you to take half of b. Half of a -6 is -3. And then you square your b value and you get a 9 and a 9. We're going to ask you to bring down the n, and the parentheses squared equals 7 plus 9 is 16. We used to just bring this 16 back. That's when we were trying to write it in vertex form. But we're going to solve this equation. We're going to ask you to take the square root. Take the square root. This is going to drop out from the radical. It's like taking the square root of x squared and it equals x. Taking the square root here, this is going to drop out and this is going to equal n minus 3. Equals. Now you remember what I said when we were solving by square roots. Anytime that you have an equation and you're taking the square root of both sides, you're going to end up with a positive and a negative for your answer. And the square root of 16 is 4. We're almost done. But the next step is we need to move this 3 to the other side. We need to move the 3 over here to this side of the equation. Let me give you a little bit more room so you can see it better. So we're going to go +3 plus 3. This will cancel, and I will get n equals 3 plus or minus 4. Now we have to do the math. We have to work this as a +4. We have to work this as a -4. So we're going to go 3 plus 4, 3 minus 4. That's what that means. We have to work it as a +4 and a -4. 3 plus 4 equals 7. 3 minus 4 equals -1. Those are my two solutions. 7 and -1 are my two solutions. Let's keep going. Okay? All right, so we have another problem. We have to move the 2 to the other side. So we're going to go -2, -2. I have x squared minus 6x plus blank equals a negative 2 plus blank. Half. Half of negative 6 again. Half of negative 6 is negative 3. I square it. When I square it, I get a 9 and I get a 9. I bring down the x and my parentheses squared equals negative 2 plus 9 is a positive 7. Now we have to solve the equation. We have to take the square root. So we're going to jump in and we're going to take the square root. We're going to take the square root. This will drop out. This will drop out as x minus 3 equals. It's just going to drop out from underneath the radical. Plus, minus. I cannot simplify this radical. I cannot break this down. It will stay as the square root of 7. What we still need to do is we need to move the negative 3 to the other side. We need to go plus 3, plus 3. But when you move it, you need to put it in front of the plus minus. We always put it in front of the plus minus. So we get x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 7. And that's how we'll write our answer. Now you could split this apart, and sometimes if you look on a key, you'll see it split apart. You'll see it as 3 plus the square root of 7, 3 minus the square root of 7. But we're going to allow you to write your answer in this form. Okay? Those are our two solutions. All right, it's going to keep moving. In this situation, I need to move the 42. I'm going to move the 42 to the other side. We're going to go minus 42, minus 42. I'm looking at 2m squared minus 16m plus blank. That will give me a negative 38 plus blank. But if you remember, I cannot leave this 2 next to my variable squared. I have to factor that out. Okay? So what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to factor the 2 away. That's going to leave me with m squared minus 8m plus blank equals negative 38 plus blank. Do you remember when we had to factor what I said we needed to do? When you factor, we're going to ask you to bounce. Okay? If you factor, you will bounce. So we're going to bring down the 2, we're going to start our parentheses, and we're going to ask you, what is half of negative 8? Half of negative 8 is negative 4. We're going to square this. Negative 4 times negative 4 is a positive 16. But I can't put 16 here. I have to bounce this 2. I bounce the 2, meaning I multiply 2 times 16. 2 times 16 is 32. Okay? Now we finish this. We bring down our m. We close it. We square it. We put an equal sign, and we do a little bit of math. Negative 38 plus 32. Negative 38 plus 32 is a negative 6. This is the same thing, the exact same thing we did when we were converting to vertex form. But wait, I still need to solve for m. I need to move my 2 to the other side. How do I move my 2 to the other side? We're going to divide by 2. We're going to divide by 2. This will cancel. See what just happened? So that leaves me with m minus 4 parentheses squared equals a negative 3. How are we doing? So far, so good? Now, we need to solve. We're going to take the square root. We're going to take the square root here. We're going to take the square root here. This is going to drop out. This will be m minus 4 equals a positive negative. Do you remember what we found out when we were solving by square roots? If I try to take the square root of a negative, I will always end up with an I. And I cannot simplify the radical 3, the square root of 3, so this is going to stay the square root of 3. When you have a negative, you're going to get an I when you take the square root. The final step that I do, the last step that I'm going to do, let me move this so you can see it at home, is I'm going to move the 4 to the other side in front of the plus minus. Plus 4, m equals 4 plus or minus I square roots of 3. Got it? All right, let's keep going. Another problem. Even though I do not have a 0 here, it's no reason to panic, just like the last problem, but we're going to move the 7 to the other side. We're going to go plus 7. We're going to go plus 7. That leaves me with 5x squared plus 10x plus blank equals, that will leave a 4 plus blank. We need to move the 5 away. So we're going to factor away the 5. That'll leave me with x squared plus 2x plus blank. Right? You're factoring out the 5 equals 4 plus blank. Remember, if you factor, you're going to bounce. We're going to say that it's a bounce. Okay? We're going to ask you, let me move this down a little bit. We're going to ask you to keep the GCF or keep that 5 coming. And we're going to ask you to take half. What is half of 2? Half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. But we bounce it. 5 times 1 is 5. Finish this out. X parentheses squared equals 4 plus 5 is 9. But in this situation, we still need to get our x by itself, so we're going to divide by 5. Divide by 5. Divide by 5. This cancels. I get x plus 1 squared equals 9 over 5. Starting to get a little bit tricky. Focus on this. I take the square root. It's a fraction. We split the radical because it is a fraction. This will drop out. X plus 1 equals a positive negative. What is the square root? What is the square root of 9? The square root of 9 is 3 over the square root of 5. Uh-oh. Am I allowed to leave a radical in the denominator? No. I can't leave a radical down here in the denominator, so we're going to rationalize it. We said to get rid of this that we were going to multiply by the square root of 5, and whatever we did at the bottom we'll do to the top. We're going to multiply times the square root of 5. Check this out. This is going to equal a positive negative. Outside stays outside, inside stays inside. That's going to be 3 square roots of 5 over the square root of 5 times the square root of 5. If you remember, that's going to give you the square root of 25, which is a regular 5. I still have my x plus 1 here. So my final step is to move my 1 and put it in front of my plus minus. So the final answer, by going minus 1, x equals a negative 1 plus or minus 3 square roots of 5 over 5. Now, if we wanted to, we could push the issue and we would make you get a common denominator and make you write it as one big fraction. But we're going to be nice to you and we're going to let you leave it like that right there. Okay? Now, I've worked about 4 or 5 problems, okay? You can see this is very, very similar to getting it or writing your equation in vertex form. But remember that when you take the square root and there is an equation involved, you need to tell me there's a plus minus. Also, if you have to factor out a number to get your x squared by itself or your squared term by itself, you're going to have to bounce and multiply. Okay? Try these problems, see what you can find out. Please email us, ask us, show up in a Zoom, let us help you. All right? Good luck.